Choosing Chaos, Solo Motherhood by Choice, the podcast for women who are done waiting for the one and ready to become the parent on their own damn terms. We're talking fertility, pregnancy, emotional chaos, and the village that it takes to raise a kid. Sometimes you're crying in the bathtub. Sometimes you're crying because your toddler bit you. And sometimes you cry because you chose all of this. Welcome to Motherhood, solo style. Let's get into it. Welcome back to Choosing Chaos, Solo Motherhood by Choice. I am your host, Laura. Today, I am so excited to be joined by Laura. Laura comes from a strong conservative family, and early on in her journey, she wasn't sure how her loved ones would react to her decision to become a single mom by choice. She navigated a roller coaster of fertility struggles and pregnancy challenges, and when we spoke, she was just on the cusp of meeting her little baby. In this conversation, you'll hear Laura share her story with incredible honesty and even ask Kristen and me some questions weighing on her mind as she prepares for labor and delivery. A conversation full of real life moments, and I cannot wait for you to hear it. Let's dive in. It's so nice to meet you, Laura, and Kristen is here to join me.
Hi, I'm Kristen. I met Laura because I did an episode with her and I loved it and we had so much fun. Now I just hop on her conversations to have more fun conversations with other people. Nice to meet you.
And we are joined today by Laura.
Hi, I'm Laura, and I am on my journey to becoming a single mother by choice. I'm currently 8 months pregnant, and I'm super excited about it.
We are excited for you, that's for sure. And what a fun time of year to be welcoming a little one. One thing I will say about baby prep is don't wash all of the clothes, just wash what you will need up front. Also, don't worry about everything having to have its place right now because you're only going to need a few things. You're going to need a bassinet, diapers, all the things to change a baby and clothes. You're going to need a ton of clothes because they are messy. So don't worry about like the perfect nursery room.
Good to know. Yeah, I have been concerned about, do I have enough clothes? Because in some of the mommy groups I've joined, they're like, oh, babies spit up and have all these blowouts. You go through like 5 to 6 onesies a day. I'm like, 5 to 6 a day? I don't know. That's probably on the extreme end. But yeah, I had people at my shower decorate onesies so that I would have more. Just, little onesies that I'm okay getting spit up on.
You know, it's funny. I was just having this conversation with a friend earlier who's delivering in about 9 weeks. I was just telling her that you will need a ton of clothes in those early days because they do. Boys especially pee all over everything all the time. I can't speak about girls, but the pooping and the throwing up on themselves, yeah, you're going to change their clothes quite a bit those first several weeks. So it's nice that you have those, but hey, that's what the washing machine is for.
Well, and that was my concern at the time too, because I don't have, or I didn't have one. My parents did buy me a portable one, and so having to use the coin operated ones in my building that are down 2 flights of stairs after I've had a C-section was stressing me out.
Yeah, no, that doesn't sound fun. No. And the lifting limitations when it comes to a C-section too.
Exactly.
Sorry, I missed this. Is it, are you having, and I say this, I had a C-section. It was by choice. I knew as soon as I had twins, like that was my decision. I wasn't trying to do a vaginal birth with both of them. Is that a choice that you are making because of a medical decision? If that's like way too personal, sorry, but, or what made you decide to do a C-section?
Yeah, so it's mostly personal. I'm terrified of vaginal delivery. And also, being over 40, having done IVF, the doctor said they'll likely want to induce at 39 weeks. So I was like, can we just schedule a C-section instead? And at first she was like, well, let's see how your pregnancy goes, because they don't like to necessarily schedule them without a medical indication. She's like, they also get booked up. So let's get it on the books. And pretty much since we've gotten it booked, she's just like, oh yeah, we're doing a C-section. It's kind of that. But also in the beginning, I was having twins. That was another issue. I ended up having, so my embryo split, which was shocking even to my doctor. She's like, oh, I haven't seen an embryo split in a long time. But yeah, the thought of doing vaginal delivery twice was even more terrifying. We were going with the scheduled C-section, but I ended up having a vanishing twin at, I think it was about 8 or 9 weeks. The second baby stopped having a heartbeat. They said it just gets absorbed into the body.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I was going to ask what happens. If we go back a little bit in time, Laura, you grew up in a Christian family. How did your family receive the news of you wanting to make this decision on your own to become a single mom by choice?
I avoided telling them for quite a while. I brought it up to my mom just to kind of test the waters. And my friend proposed. She was like, you should just say, like, what would you do if you were me? And see what she says. And so I basically was like, well, if you were over 40 and really wanted a baby and hadn't met someone, like, would you consider doing it by yourself? She was like, no, I wouldn't. Okay.
Oh, wow.
My friend was like, oh, and she'll like think about it, but she like instantly came back. And I don't think it was necessarily from a religious standpoint, just from not having the help. And so I kind of left it at that and was like, well, I'm moving forward, but I didn't include her in the whole journey, and thought, because there are so many things that can happen, and I didn't necessarily want her to be involved if there wasn't a reason to be. I kept going with my journey and thought, well, when I'm pregnant, I'll let her know, And I hadn't said anything about it to my dad. I didn't know if she had, but I kind of figured she hadn't. I did mention it to both of my brothers. They're not as religious, but again, everyone is just concerned about how would I handle a baby by myself, financially, physically, mentally, all of the things. I appreciated their concern, but ultimately, like, I've always wanted to be a mom, and had a finite window of time to do that left.
Yep.
I did the transfer, and one of my brothers knew, and sister-in-law, and I kind of included them in the journey because they also helped me get a loan, because as we know, IVF is not cheap, at least not in the US. So I wanted to keep them involved in the journey. It took a while before I told my mom. Like, I wanted to wait until 12 weeks, as they say, like waiting until second trimester. And so I bought her a Mother's Day gift, and it said like world's greatest Nana. And she didn't put two and two together because she's been a Nana for 20 years already via my brothers. And then I had my dog had a little bandana on that said, guess what, mom's pregnant. And she's like, what? Really? I was kind of surprised at how shocked she was, because I had told her I was thinking about it, but I guess she didn't think I'd really go through with it. That was maybe the first time my dad had heard about it. I was nervous how he was going to take it, but he honestly had fewer questions than she did. I think he probably comes at it from a more pragmatic, practical side. Like, he understands that I am older, and if this is something that I really wanted to do, like, now is the time. So, but she was pretty floored by it. But they've taken to it well, much better than I expected. And, she's telling her friends at church, she's telling her physical therapy nurses all about it. She's like, yeah, they all think you're so brave. So, yeah.
What were some questions that your mom had in that initial reaction or first few days of hearing this news?
This is actually really funny. So after she had about a day to process it, because I did this like the day before Mother's Day. So on Mother's Day, we talked again, and she goes, so whose juice did you use? Oh, dear God. Very conservative Christian mother, just asking.
And she used the word juice as a Christian mom.
That was the thing. I was like, did she follow that? Quite crass. So that was the big one. At the time when I initially told her, she was just like, are you sure you really want to do this yourself? Like, well, no, but A, that's where I am in life, and B, I'm already pregnant, so kind of late for that question, So, right. But yeah, she's super excited now, and she's gonna watch the baby for me, and everything's.
Oh my gosh,
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I found that my family, so like, again, Lauren knows this, my IUI was a well-timed science experiment. All of my family knew, not all of my family, my close circle they knew at 14 days. When I tested positive, people knew. So like, similar to you, it was just, are you sure? I'm like, well, it's too late now. But through the whole process, I think it's just weird for people to think about how we're getting pregnant, right? Nobody walks around thinking how a lot of couples get pregnant. Like, you're not like, oh yeah, they had sex yesterday, so maybe they're pregnant now. Like, but because there's so much more that goes into us getting pregnant, it's like weird for people to think about. But then once the baby arrives, or in my case, babies, I could not have anticipated the amount of love that my children have. Now it's kind of weird because people are like, they think the worst, like, how are you going to do this by yourself? And then once it arrives, it's like, well, no, I'm going to be here to help you because this little thing is so cute.
Right. Yeah, and I was kind of inspired by, there's a woman who I used to share an office with who's very old school Catholic, and her daughter ended up becoming a single mother by choice. And it was kind of when I was just learning about the term and the concept. And she, also didn't tell her parents for a while because they're very devout Catholics. But at the end of the day, like, a baby's a baby, and they were super excited. She ended up having twins also, but that mom dotes on those babies. And then when I told the same couple that I was pregnant, they were ecstatic and didn't question who was the father or where'd the baby come from. She went out and bought me a baby gift. So yeah, people are excited about babies.
And I think too, we get the question a lot is like, are you sure you want to do this by yourself? Well, no, I don't want to do it by myself, but dating also sucks. So if I want to become a mom, I am going to have to do it on my own. There's no choice. There's no other way to do this. So yes, I made the decision. Do I want to be a single mom? And actually, now that I am a single mom,
yes,
yeah, because I don't have the other opinion making decisions for my child. But would the extra help be nice? Absolutely, it would be.
Yeah, especially for me, like, the financial aspect would be amazing if I had someone else, contributing and splitting the rent and all that stuff. And that prolonged the hesitation until I actually did the transfer as well. Because even when I started my journey, there was still this, well, what if I meet someone? Or, I looked into other compromises, like maybe I do co-parenting with someone else who wants to be a single dad by choice, and it's his sperm and my egg. And so I went down that road a little bit, and then I had guys who were offering to be the donor, and oh well, this guy is a doctor and be very stable financial support, but there's always a quid pro quo there, right? Like, he needed a visa and I wasn't the greatest person, and so I'm like, I don't want that to be the other half of my child.
Support would the financial part of that would be absolutely amazing, and that might be the only reason that I would have somebody in my life.
Exactly.
It's for the financial aspect.
Yeah.
So your parents definitely came around, and your brothers, it sounds like, were very supportive the whole time. What was one of the first gifts that you received from your family or anybody else, I should say? That's like a little fun question I threw in there.
Yeah. Who gave me the first gift? That's a good question. Maybe the first gift, not for the baby, but for me. One of my good friends, Harvey, who also was someone who had offered to be a donor generously. I would say, is the one person there was like no strings attached. He's just a good guy. But he's been like my ride or die friend through this whole journey. He bought me flowers on Mother's Day when I had only been pregnant for a few weeks at that point. Well, I transferred March 27th, so we 6 weeks or so by then.
Flowers are amazing. Oh, you have brought up a few times that you may have considered a known donor. Did you end up going that route?
I did not. No,
Okay, so you went unknown through a bank.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it just was too complicated. And on top of that, again, with my age being a factor, I was 41 when I started seriously considering my journey, and 42 by the time I transferred. Using a known donor would have added 6 months onto the process, because they have to take a sample and then get it tested and then freeze it and wait and then like thaw it and retest it. So there's all this legal paperwork added on to all of that. I was like, you know what, I'm just ready to move forward and without all these strings attached. So yeah, I went with a bank. It was super important for me, though, to use someone with an open ID. Unfortunately, you do pay a little bit more for that. But I went kind of down a rabbit hole of into some of these groups and Reddits and stuff with donor conceived people, so that I could get an idea like how my child might feel if I make this decision and how to make the best decision moving forward. And it was pretty unanimous that they were against anonymous donations because they feel they have a right to their genetic background, which totally makes sense, and they want to be open to meeting their biological parent if possible, or if they want to. And I didn't want to rob my child of that if that's something that he or she wanted. So
I think fully anonymous donation is actually, I don't think it's legal anymore. Where you go in and you don't have to give the bank your information. You just want your $400 and go on your merry way. I'm just making that number up, but I want to say late 80s, 90s, where there was no accountability. There was no tracking. And so now I think you still have to say who you are. And then like the bank that I went through as well does identity release at 18. And I can't ask as the parent. I can't go to the bank now and say, I want to know who this person is. My kids can get their information or his information when they turn 18, if that's a decision that they choose to make, which I think is an interesting like distinction, because there's unknown donors, right? Meaning someone we don't know, but they're not actually unknown they're not completely anonymous.
Yeah, that makes sense. But in some countries it also varies too. Like some countries, everyone is anonymous.
I guess I should, maybe my caveat should be in the US.
Yeah.
But if you use donors from,
consider going to other countries where it's cheaper to do IVF. But I hear what you're saying. Yeah. One of the avenues that I considered when I was considering co-parenting or known donors, there are apps that you can use to find potential known donors, and that was a terrifying rabbit hole to go down. I will just say, really? There's some scary people on those apps.
Well, there's scary people in general in the world, but yeah, I can imagine there is a lot of fear that comes with that too, because you kind of don't know this person's background,
right? And some that it just seemed like wanted to just spread their seed or just wanted.
Yeah, no, isn't Nick Cannon that way?
Yeah, right.
You could have called him up if you were looking for you'd have a lot of money to help with the baby too. That's for sure.
Although it's already spread to 11 kids.
I don't even know at this point. So you've sort of faced several challenges over this whole journey, but also as an adult, and financial strain, fertility issues, and even the surprise of the twins that we have previously mentioned. How did you navigate all of that emotionally and practically?
The twins honestly were the hardest to navigate because it was so shocking because, I hadn't transferred 2 embryos. It was just one. So that wasn't an outcome that I was expecting. And it's only, my doctor said, like a 1 to 3% chance of that happening. So that was the biggest roller coaster, because I knew that financially, like, this was going to be a difficult decision and I would be making sacrifices for the baby and whatnot. But when there's 2, that just doubled all the costs, So
it actually is like 4 times the cost if you really want to know. It's not double.
Wow.
Yeah, Kristen can speak to experience on that.
Yeah, like, called, there's a daycare that people at my work use, and I called to get a quote, and they quoted me at $3,000 a month per child.
Whoa, per child?
Per child. I'm in a high cost of living area, but still, I was like, I don't even make $6,000 take home after taxes. I'm gonna have to quit my job and go on welfare to support these babies.
Are they feeding the child all day long, like
right,
giving him like gold nuggets or something? Right. I don't know. Wow.
Like my initial plan had been for my mom to help watch the baby when I go back to work. I'm like, I can't ask my 75-year-old mother to watch twins, so all these things, and buying duplicates of these expensive car seats and strollers, and granted you don't have to get the highest brand, but still you get what I'm saying. Like that stressed me out because I thought I had things kind of planned out, and granted on this journey you can never have things totally planned out. There are always wrenches that get thrown in. Yep. But that was That was the biggest wrench. Along the way, there were always big decisions to be made. Like I felt through the IVF journey, there were always things coming up, and you have to make them quickly, right? Like you have to pick the sperm donor, and you have to decide you want to transfer at this date, and oh, there's a fibroid, we have to take that out first, and all these things that keep adding up, and then the financial aspect leading up to that, like each round costing 12 to 15 grand is not insignificant. If one round doesn't work out and you've already taken out a loan, can you even consider doing a second round? All of these things leading up to that. But so there were like big financial stressors before the twins, but finding out it was twins was the biggest shock.
Yeah. I feel for women that do multiple rounds of IVF, and I hope that they have a pretty penny saved because it is not cheap by any means. And I don't know how people can financially afford to keep going after 2 rounds or more, but it's almost like a part-time, full-time job actually to begin with. Is like because you have appointments so much, and then the shots and all the ultrasounds and the blood work and everything else. It is dedication to having a kid. Not that IUI isn't, but it's definitely a lot easier because you just kind of do a few things and show up and have that done. But the IVF, wow, it's a lot. Did you have to do the progesterone shots after?
Yes, and honestly, that was like the worst part of the IVF journey. I tried to avoid them because initially we were trying to do a natural cycle, but then again, like a wrench gets thrown in, and well, the first one was it was about this time last year. I was supposed to transfer in December, and I didn't get a period. Or no, the first time it was because we missed my ovulation date, just barely. And so,
How do they do that? Because they are like, it's a timed science. They know it all.
kind of, I don't know, maybe it was my fault that I wasn't reading the strips right. I don't know, because you have to like use these at home and whatever. So then by the time I went in for the blood test, the nurse was like, sorry, you missed the date. So they closed for the holidays, and I was also traveling for the holidays. And then I didn't get a period for 2 months. And you have to be regular to do a natural cycle. So then I had to start with the progesterone and go down that path, which I was not happy about. Those were pretty awful, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
And
Did you do it yourself?
I did. So for whatever reason, my clinic doesn't recommend using the auto injector. So I didn't get an auto injector. And she'd also said like, oh, don't worry, I've only seen like one person hit a vein. Oh, I did it multiple times. Like the first time I almost passed out because I won't get too graphic, but like it was a mess and I had to go lay down immediately.
Oh.
So that was not fun. And then I thought, well, once I'm pregnant, then I can stop. And the nurse was like, oh no, you have to keep doing these shots for 12 weeks or until you're 12 weeks. I'm like,
I've heard you get very uncomfortable after because you like don't have any spots left.
yeah. And then on top of that, I have a blood clotting condition. I have to take a blood thinning shot every day for the entire pregnancy. And while I was doing the hormones for IVF also. So I'm like a pincushion.
Yeah, I feel for you because it's again a lot of dedication, a lot of bruising, and a lot of shots. I feel for you. Were there any particular turning points or supports that helped you push through all the hard times? I know that the loss of the one twin had to feel some sort of way emotionally through the shots and everything else that you've faced or dealt with through this pregnancy. Was there anybody there by your side?
Yeah, I have a pretty good village and support system, which has been nice and was important to me, like going into this. I have some good friends, like all over here and around the world, and some who are single moms by choice. And then also, I joined a local single mom by choice group, and we have like a monthly thinkers and triers meetup. And so it's nice to meet with other women that are going through it, and we're all at different stages, but just to have women to bounce things off of and hear like, oh yeah, I went through that too. And it's just nice to have that bond.
How did you find those groups? Because other Laura and I have talked about that too, because there's a huge SMC community in Denver, and we all get together fairly regularly, or at least like have different chats and things like that. But it doesn't seem like it's that way in every city, which makes sense. But so how did you, find those groups and find your people within those groups?
It started first with the woman that I mentioned who kind of inspired me. She had said, "Oh, I'm in this Single Mothers by Choice meetup in DC. You should look and see if there's one in LA." And so, I searched and found it. And at that time, I was only ready to freeze eggs. I wasn't, and still thinking like, oh, maybe I'll meet my partner and use my eggs with him or not need to use them at all. But I did, look it up and found the group. And then also when I told one of my friends who's a single mom by choice, she sent me links to all these Facebook groups, like the main Single Mothers by Choice group, which maybe how I met you, Laura, I can't even remember.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And then from there is an LA Facebook group. It's not very active, but then from there's like a WhatsApp group and the meetup group. And yeah, so I am slightly worried, I will say, because one of the caveats of using my mother for childcare or being lucky enough to have her for childcare is that I have to move to Kansas City because that's where she is. So, I'm going to lose my LA village, which I'm super bummed about. And I have looked a little bit into what the SMC KC community is like, and I haven't found them yet. So, but I haven't tried too hard. But I am at some point going to reach out to probably in the main group or something and see who I can find to start my new village.
I'm trying to think if we have spoken to anybody yet in Kansas City. I feel like I have, but I can't. It's hard to remember everybody. Now, with pregnancy, every woman feels this sort of way, whether you are coupled up or not. It can be quite lonely at times. And how do you find yourself sort of navigating the loneliness through the last 8 months of pregnancy? If you have experienced that.
To be honest, I had a harder time with that during the IVF process than I have since I've become pregnant. Since I've become pregnant, it's like all that matters to me is this baby, and it's like man or not, no big deal, honestly. But during the IVF process, when I would go into the clinic and there are all these couples, and especially there's one particular couple that was like all about the PDA, and I wanted to be like, stop pissing on her leg, like we get it, you're together. Like,
are you putting on a show?
Yeah, exactly. Like because you couldn't perform in the bedroom, but no, that was too far.
That.
This is why we're single, ladies.
Right. Like there are definitely times when like I see these elements of relationships playing out and I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of happy I'm doing this myself. Like in the pregnancy groups that I'm in, women will be complaining about, oh, my husband wants sex and I'm not interested. And I'm like, I'm glad I'm not dealing with that. The other crap that comes along with relationships that they're posting about. And I'm like, maybe doing it alone is not so tough. I don't know. I mean, it's tough in other ways, but
is there anything going into the upcoming delivery that concerns you or that you are nervous about that you might want to ask Kristen and I questions about?
Yeah. Did you both? I know Kristen, you did C-sections. Did you also, Laura? Or
no, but let me just say that I begged at one point for them to cut me open. I actually almost asked for a knife because I was so over. I was over the freaking contractions because my epidural fell out. So I did not have a C-section.
Okay. Yeah.
I can't tell you about the recovery process, but that's what Kristen's for.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm in a C-section support group now, and which in some ways has been good, but in other ways has been bad because now it's given me new fears. Like this, woman talking about, oh, you can smell the skin being cut, or I'm like, oh, I could feel it, and I'm like, like, did you feel anything?
That seems strange to me. Like, yes, you feel it, but basically what happens is you get I think an epidural. They numb you from the like ribs down. basically. And then you don't feel any of that. You can feel them pushing on your belly, but it doesn't hurt. But like they're just pushing from up towards your sternum down because that's where babies are.
Yeah.
Or mine were, they didn't drop as much as like you probably will at that late in the game. But you're also like, there's so much happening. And like, I was trying not to throw up. The meds that they gave me made me really nauseous. So again, unique to me, not, I don't think that happens to everyone. But I think I was more focused on my best friend was in the operating room with me, which is a whole other story. But she had made a playlist, and the playlist that was playing when they were born, because they were born 2.5 minutes apart, was Push It, which was hilarious because I wasn't actually pushing. I highly recommend like coming up with a playlist. Like some people, one of my other good friends, like the fact that I know this is crazy. Her daughter was born to Willow by Taylor Swift, and it's just like this calming song, and she's a Swiftie. I think like having that something else to focus on other than like the fact that someone is cutting you open and your intestines are out on a table is like a really good place to be.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to know. Because I had been thinking about music and I wasn't sure if you could do it in the C-section or okay, good to know.
Yeah, they have Bluetooth speakers in there. And are you planning to be in the room by yourself?
No, my mom's gonna be there.
Oh, that's awesome.
And yeah, so I'm excited. She is kind of a queasy person, so I'm a little bit concerned about her being in there and around blood. She'll definitely have to like stay up by my head.
That's awesome.
Aww.
My other unsolicited recommendation, like no plan when you're delivering children is ever going to go to plan, but because I knew that I was going to have a C-section and like would likely be on pain meds and right, they're going to ask you a million questions, is I went through like what those preferences are and gave them, like my whole family had them. I was supposed to have a doula, but again, my kids came super early, so she wasn't there. So my best friend ended up in the room, but they all had this document that said, here's what I want for them. I want the vitamin K shots. I don't want formula, but they can be on donated milk. Like there's just a bunch of questions that if you're going to get asked a million times, but then also that other folks know the answer to. It's not the like, am I having a C-section or not? What birth position do I want to be in, right? Like when you're having a C-section and that's scheduled, you've taken out a lot of those decisions, which is really nice, but there's still 10 million other questions that need to be answered. And then the other thing for me that was really important because I was going into a major surgery was like, what if something happens to me? Then who becomes the decision maker? Right. So for me, it was like, if anything happens to the babies, my doula makes the decisions because she also had a preemie who went into the NICU she had much more complex medical issues. I know you can make these decisions under pressure. So you are in charge of any decision making around the babies. But if anything happens to me, then, or I can't make decisions for myself, then those go to my parents. And it sucks because nobody wants to think about that when you're bringing life into the world. But the reality is like, we don't have a partner to make those decisions or to have those conversations. So identifying like who can help you make those decisions, or not make those decisions, but have those conversations on your behalf.
Very good point. I have been thinking I need to have a conversation with my brother and sister-in-law about like potentially being godparents and doing the whole like will and trust and all that. Did you do that before you had birth, or have you done that?
I have done it since I had Weston.
I did it recently, so they were about a year for that level. I had other sort of non-formal documents in place so that like my family knew they were aligned if something happened, but now I have like the legal documents of like a will and a trust and what happens to me, what happens to them, long-term, short-term, all of that.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually saw a PCP like a week ago, and she was like, if you do not have a will, we're going to have a different conversation. And I was like, I did that when he was like 6 months old, so we're good.
Yeah. Well, even like they ask about advanced directive at the hospital, and I do have one, but my feelings have changed now that I'm about to become a mom. Like before I had DNR, do not resuscitate, but now I'm like, I don't want to rob my child of a mother unless that absolutely has to happen. So I need to change that and have a discussion with my mom about taking over if need be, but God forbid.
I think to Kristen's point too, it's key that your mom also knows what decisions that you would want to make, through the whole labor and delivery process. And, you have your induction date. Who knows, between now and then that could change, right? You could deliver sooner than expected. But it's good that she has all that information there. And I went into the hospital myself having a birth plan, and I made that very clear when I went into the hospital to the nurse. The biggest piece of advice that I had received from a nurse outside of my entire delivery experience was not to let a resident do your epidural. So in your point, it would be a spinal tap. I would make that very explicitly clear in your birth plan. So just make sure that you reiterate that a million times.
But I would also add to Laura's point of like who does what. So I was of advanced maternal age, right? IUI twins in with premature labor at a teaching hospital. And so there were always a lot of people around. Sorry, it sounds like I'm gonna start crying. I'm not, I just my throat. And you can always say there are too many people in the room. I only
Yes.
want the people that need to be here. And I think it's hard when you're in those situations to advocate for yourself, but if you're not comfortable with it, you're not comfortable with it. Like for me, again, with twins, we had like my care team, right? The anesthesiologist, the OB, the folks who did the C-section, and then I had 2 kids, so I had a neonatologist in each of their care teams as well. So there were 20 plus people in my operating room for me and my 2 kids born at 34 weeks. It was a lot. Thankfully, I couldn't see a lot of it, but my best friend was like, you would have hated it. Like if you could see the number of people in this room, you would have been pissed. But because I couldn't see it, it didn't worry me. If you feel that there's a lot of people around, be like, I only want essential personnel in here and that's it. Yeah. You might not be at a teaching hospital. It might be a little bit different, but
I am. Yes, these are good points.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was at a teaching hospital too, and I will say after delivery, and you might have experienced this, Kristen, but my advice to you, Laura, is that first 24 hours at least, if not the first 48 hours, every 5 minutes, somebody will be at your fucking door, and you're going to be like, I haven't even had a chance to pee yet, and you want to do all these things. So it's okay to let your nurse know to hang a do not disturb on the door so you can get some sort of rest, because they will be at your door. Somebody, it doesn't have to be a nurse, it will be some stupid person wanting you to review this thing or sign this thing or whatever. Tell them to go away. Give me 5 minutes of sleep. That's it.
No, I did have a quick question for Kristen on
Oh yeah, of course.
recovery, especially with twins. I'm concerned about obviously the pain, but I have had abdominal surgery before, so I'm not as concerned about that, but more like the holding the baby with the incision and feeding the baby with the incision. And I'm in a second floor walk up, so that's a concern, carrying the car seat and the baby and all that. So how did you manage these things?
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, give yourself grace. I had not had any like surgery period ever in my whole life. I would say the difference for me and likely what will happen for you is my kids were in the NICU for almost a month. So I came home every day by myself, and like I often slept in a chair because it was more comfortable to sleep like upright than in my bed. But as far as like carrying them and all of that, like in the first few days, I didn't have to do that because they were in the NICU. And so like it only got hard when I left, but at that point I had almost a month of recovery time. I would say like for you, like being in the hospital, stay as long as you can, like as long as your insurance allows. And I know that sounds shitty, like a lot of people just want to like go home and be in that space, but as single moms, having those people, like, because like Laura said, you can say, I only come in here every 3 hours. My kids were on a CARES schedule, so they were fed every 3 hours. So I pumped every 3 hours. I need you to align with that. Do not wake me up if I'm not awake outside of those 3-hour windows. Yeah, give yourself grace. I would say there's so much that you feel like you need to do because there's a newborn around. The reality is you don't have to do any of it. Your job in those first, I'll say 12 weeks, right? Then do we have to go back to work, is take care of yourself and keep the tiny humans alive. The rest will be done, right? So like, I know you said you don't have your washer is, you have one upstairs now and you don't have to walk down the stairs. That's huge. And like, but also, you know, if you used to do laundry every couple of days, like I do laundry once a week because I just mentally can't fathom folding laundry more than that. I'd rather like spend one chunk of time doing it than multiple times a day. Allow yourself to change and to evolve based on what your body's telling you. And the other thing I would say that I didn't do that I wish I did, which is a little more tactical, I think, than strategic, if you will, is if you have a bed frame, tie a sheet or something to the end of it so that you can pull yourself up. Because like, I would have to like throw myself out of bed versus trying to like sit up, because you don't have that. You can't sit up.
Yeah,
so
that sounds painful.
Tie something to help you get up.
Oh, I want to get a rocker for the baby, but they have the ones that lift a little bit.
Okay.
They're more expensive, but I'm like, that would help with the C-section.
In the grand scheme of things, if it is going to help your life and it is going to take some added stress off or pressure off or whatever from your body and or your mental health, I say invest in it because it is well worth it. I was also hesitant to buy $1,000 rocker, glider, recliner, and then I was like, you know what, how many times I've slept in that thing? It will be a lifesaver for you. And you mentioned about being in a walk-up. Is there any way that you can put the baby in a carrier to carry the baby up from the car so that you're not doing the lifting the car seat plus the baby, which I know is more than the weight limit of what you're supposed to carry post delivery?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely what I'm thinking is going to have to happen. But again, with the incision, I still don't know if it'll be okay to carry the baby like that. Like if it's going to be rubbing right on the incision, I don't know. I'll have to kind of see how it all works out. Thankfully, my mom will be here for the first month, so she can help a little bit.
She'll be fine.
Yeah.
Mom, do the heavy lifting, please.
That's right.
True. And if you don't shower for a few days, it's okay. Nobody cares.
Yeah, I don't care about that.
Seriously, nobody cares. As long as baby's okay and you're okay, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
I want to send you the best of luck through that entire process. Don't be afraid. It's very exciting. You will do all the things. Just know that you have a support system for you. Don't hesitate to reach out to either one of us. Any questions that you have, we are here for you. And sending you all the luck in the world before you meet your son. He's going to be here so soon. That's crazy.
Very excited.
Yes.
Yay, it's going to be awesome.
It has been such a pleasure, Laura. Do not hesitate to reach out to us.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to this conversation with Laura. Shortly after we recorded this episode, she had welcomed her sweet baby boy into the world. Both mom and baby are doing beautifully, finding their rhythm and adjusting to life as a little team. Laura's journey reminds us so deeply that the love in our hearts and our desire to become moms can be so much stronger than anyone else's doubts or concerns. It's a tender, powerful reminder of courage, hope, and the beautiful beginnings that can come from following your own path. And before you go, thank you for hanging out in this little corner of chaos with us. If choosing chaos has even slightly snuck into your life, hit subscribe so that you don't miss more stories of courage, choice, and connection in the gloriously messy, coffee-fueled chaos of motherhood. You can find us on TikTok, Instagram, Patreon, and YouTube. Come join the fun, share your wins and your fails, and connect with other moms who are surviving, thriving, and occasionally crying in the bathroom. Thank you for trusting us with your hopes and your hearts. We will see you next time on Choosing Chaos.